All right. So, hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Robert L. Wilson Jr., and I have the privilege and honor to be here with Felicha Stanley. We wanted to really bring an opportunity to discuss a topic that we both find really helpful and beneficial, but also sometimes overlooked. So, in terms of that conversation, what we want to introduce to you all is this is workplace wellness, workplace mentorship, and coaching. Again, workplace wellness, mentorship, and coaching. Felicia and I have had several conversations around this, and we said, you know what, it might be really cool to get together and have a great conversation around this. This is something that we're both passionate about, and we both realize that um, in our workplace, these resources, tools, and opportunities are a great space to help people in the workforce to be more effective, more efficient, more productive, but also just have better wellness overall. And so we want to do that. But before we get in and dive in deep, I want to pass the mic over to Felicia, let her tell you a little bit about herself, a little bit about her background, and then the two of us will kind of dive into this conversation uh, for you all. So thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Dr. Wilson. As you stated, I am Felicha Stanley, and I just want to share a brief introduction of who I am, a little bit about my education and my businesses. Yes, I have a Master of Education degree. I have a business administration degree. I have HR degrees, to name a few. I am currently the owner of Global Education Consulting, a for profit consulting where we consult not only for book publishing, we consult for strategy consulting and also education consulting. The next business is I am a founder and nonprofit executive of Women Empowering Women, a nonprofit organization that um, provides services for women and young girls, especially mentoring. We mentor not only young women, but also young girls. We mentor in a lot of different areas, everywhere for the young girls from etiquette to financial literacy to public speaking, leadership skills, and so forth. And for women, we mentor on life issues, relationship issues, and challenges. We mentor on what you need to empower yourself. We mentor on giving back to the community, building resilience, leadership, professional development. All of those are a few things that we mentor women on. In addition to that, I partnered with Dr. Wilson to be able to come together and present to you some information that we feel that is going to help you. And this is just a little teeny bit of the tip of the iceberg. Outside of the businesses that I have, I am a family person. I have four adult children. I have three grandchildren. I have a cute little puppy called Sparky Danielle, who loves to be in my office when I'm working. I'm an everyday normal person, but I do like helping women, young girls are my passion, but I help everybody. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Wilson.
All right. Thanks, Felicia. That's great. So one thing I also want to give you a shout out for your book. What tell them the title of your book and where they can purchase it at.
Oh, yes. The first book I wrote in 2020 is W Power, The Strength of an Empowered Woman to Change the World. The second book is the workbook to the first book, and it's also called W Powered, The Strength of an Empowered Woman to Change the World Companion Action Workbook. The books can be found on Amazon or on my personal website, which is www.empoweringwritings.com. /books, BOOKS. Thank you for allowing
All
me
right.
to share those two great books with everybody. And on Amazon, it's Felicha, Felicha, Senegar, Sinegar, Stanley, Stanley. And the book is Power, Power, the strength of an empowered woman to change the world.
What
Back
social
to you,
media
Dr.
what social media platforms are you on so they can reach out to you?
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I'm on pretty much all of the social media platforms.
All right. Thanks, Felicia. So will dive in. So as we get in this conversation, if you want to work with Felicia or myself or both, definitely reach out to us around some of the topics that we'll be discussing today. Today is mainly going to be talking about workplace wellness, mentorship, and coaching, because we really want to see resources, tools, and opportunities within the workplace. But we both do some other work in terms of our businesses. So definitely, if you have any inquiries, feel free to reach our way and inquire. So without further ado, we want to dive back into this conversation. I'm using this PowerPoint really just to kind of guide it, because I think it's really helpful for the visual piece of it. But again, workplace wellness, mentorship, and coaching. So the first area we really want to kind of dive into is workplace wellness. Felicia, I'll kind of start the conversation and definitely welcome you to share some of your experience in terms of the workplace and things that we can do to increase our wellness. I know for me, I've written a couple books, and it's about wellness, and I take wellness from a holistic point of view. However, I break them down dimensionally, because what I found is that we talk about it holistically, but sometimes we are unaware of some of the different components or elements that really contribute to our wellness. So I use the 8 dimensions of wellness model, where we talk about things like spiritual, intellectual, emotional, financial, physical, social, occupational, and environmental wellness, and how they all funnel into each other. But the three pieces, and this is not exhaustive list by no means. So if there's other things you want to add, Felicia, definitely do that. And for those of you who want to watch this on my YouTube, if you're like, Robert, you know what? I saw that, but there were some other things that I wanted to add or I had questions about. That's what this is all about. This is about generating a conversation about things in the workplace, as opposed to just going to work, doing your 9 to 5, and then going home, but really things that really contribute to you and your wellness overall. So when we talk about healthy work culture, what is that, Felicia? What does that mean to you when we talk about having a healthy work culture?
I'll thank you for that question. Having a healthy workplace culture is when an individual goes to a place of employment and the things that they say and the things that they do are appreciated, because a person, when you feel appreciated in your environment, you're going to want to continue going there. You're going to be more relaxed when you're there. You're going to be more willing to communicate and collaborate with your colleagues. A thriving culture is a culture where your professional aspirations are being nurtured. When you put it out there that you want to do something positive, maybe join an ERG group and participate and make it a better environment where you're working at, and that is welcome. That's one of the things that I consider to be really, really important and healthy.
Great answer. A couple of things as you were saying that I was thinking about the physical space, having a space where it's conducive to you growing, feeling good, right? It's a nice vibe in the workspace, but also emotionally. A lot of times I've heard people say things like going to work can be almost a burden, or a lot of worry, or a lot of mental challenges around the workplace and how they feel. Sometimes what happens emotionally and mentally can actually manifest itself physically. So when we talk about workplace culture, talking about being able to have open communication and dialogue in the workplace. I know for years I've done a lot of work around conflict resolution in workplaces and really helping to develop those skills and seeing how a space where people had it was a safe space that people could really openly and honestly have real conversations, connections. And when things weren't going well, that they could actually say something about it, as opposed to everybody walking on eggshells in the workplace or not necessarily knowing if they could talk to it, or a fear of if they say something, there's going to be a backlash of that. In those organizations, a lot of times there was a lot of backbiting. So a healthy work culture really is the opposite of those things I just mentioned. It's a space where people can actually um, be their authentic selves, but at the same point in time, grow and really build wellness in those 8 dimensions I mentioned, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, uh, financially, physically, socially, occupationally, and environmentally. If you're like Robert, I've never heard of those 8 dimensions of wellness, or you're inquiring about that, again, reach out to me and I can give you more information on that model and how to, and because I use it a lot in terms of conversations around wellness and also even in the work I do with organizations and leaders and how to add that into um, their practices and their process to be more effective and efficient. So the other part of that, as we go back to the slide, is resources for wellness and wellness practices. So I'll kind of share this piece, Felicia, and then you can definitely talk to me about some of the things that you saw in terms of the workplace. And because one of the things with Felicia's book is about some of the challenges in the workplace. So her book being a resource, but how important is it to have resources, and what does that wellness practices look like from an organizational standpoint? Because it's good to talk about individually, but a big part of our conversation today is really as an or if I'm a leader of an organization, if I'm a CEO, or if I'm in middle management, or if I'm an employee, what are some things in terms that I want to create in that workplace where there's resources for wellness, and then also things that I can actually practice or implement into my practices for to improve my own wellness or the organizational's wellness.
I think for individuals to have resources for wellness at work, I think there should be a really good balance where if an employee needs, say, an hour at work, a break outside of your normal breaks, you should be able to have that. You should be able to say, I need to get some fresh air. I need to step out and maybe go walk around the track. If your company has a track, go walk around the track for an hour or come back and get back to work. Or if there's a person that on the campus that you would like to go and, kind of talk to de-stress, that improves your mental clarity. I feel that people should have that ability. And also, a lot of times we talk about fitness. Fitness helps with your wellness because we all know that when your body is physically fit, that's one part of your wellness. I feel that companies should either allow their employees to go to the fitness center if there's a fitness center on the campus, or if not, you should be able to go work out during the day and then return back and complete your work. There's many different options that you can do to get outside of the four walls within your office or your cubicle or wherever you're working at, to kind of get your mind together and then come back, because your wellness is so important that if you don't have it together, then you're not going to be the best of you in your work environment. Especially if you're working for someone else and you have all these demands on you, the list of things to do. Another thing I'll say that during COVID, when we were all working in an environment, everybody was afraid to even go and communicate with your colleagues. Everybody either stayed in their office or stayed at their cubicles. I think this was a time when people really needed to check up on themselves and see, oh, am I really okay? If I'm not taking care of my wellness, then I'm not okay. There's a lot of simple things that you can do, like meditate, uh, do yoga. Those are some things that are very, very simple to do that doesn't cost. But I feel that most employers today do have some sort of um, plan where you can go and work out. Then you have to consider, as the employer, are you going to let your employees go take that time out when they need it and not when you determine they can do that? Because for me, working for an employer back then, there was, you could either do it on campus before work or after work, but not during work. So there came the opportunity, if you needed to get up and walk, you could do that, but not necessarily go and work out, which could have been something that you really needed at that point in time. Another thing I'll mention is with the wellness piece, just say, for instance, during a lot of meetings, and you may come across something that was kind of like conflict. I don't like to use it a whole lot, but yes, there are conflicts in meetings. After the meeting, you go your way and everybody else go their way. Suppose you needed to say, um, kind of get it all out of your system so that you can regroup and proceed with your day. Well, if you had the ability to say, go talk to another coworker, or even just read a book. Reading a book is really good. I think that that's some things that you can do that not necessarily have to get permission to do. And you can take it into your own hands with something small like that. I hope I answered your question. I went through a lot of different ways
No,
on wellness, the
I'm
things that I've
laughing.
done.
No, I'm laughing because a couple of things come to mind. One, when you start talking about taking time, I'm like, employers going to go, what if people just start misusing that time and taking time and not just trying to work? So that's one of the things I thought about. But also, when you mentioned that, I thought about some of the EAP programs or groups that organizations have that sometimes they are undervalued and underutilized. And sometimes there's even a stigma associated with those programs because people only go to them when there's a problem versus being proactive instead of reactive, or being um, using those opportunities to foster and cultivate wellness. So that was one. Also, when you mentioned the different practices, I think what's really helpful there in what you mentioned is there's a variety of things that people might be able to choose from, and so I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. I think it's important in this space that we define wellness, and so when people think wellness, typically one of the challenges I had when I start discussing wellness as being holistic, people typically talked about wellness as something physical and only physical fitness. And that's one dimension. That's why I named those 8 dimensions. But when you talk about the National Wellness Institute, one of the things that they define wellness is wellness is choices, and choices in how you choose to exist and what wellness is going to look like at work. And I think that's what you were really sharing, is that wellness is going to be tailored to you as an individual. But I think individually, that's what's going to be tailored. But organizationally, I think part of the responsibility is creating a space where employees have opportunities for wellness, whether it's resources or within that work environment conducive to creating a space for people to be the best version of themselves. So I think that's important, and so that kind of goes into this last piece of it, is not only the resources but also the practices. that's what you talked about, taking like yoga or exercise or some of those things. I think that becomes really important in terms of creating a space where workplace wellness is something that's intentional and strategic. It's not something that's accidental or only when employees are not doing well, but you want your employees to be well, right? And that funnels over into their work ethic and their productivity and also communication skills and maybe reducing if you have an organization where there's a lot of high turnover, those things. I think the next piece of this conversation, we move into mentorship. And when we think about mentorship, I think about competence, confidence, skills, and productivity. Competence, when you know how to do something, it builds confidence, right? But with that confidence and competence comes having a skill set that can create, and produce. So let's talk about mentorship and what are some of the pros to mentorship, but also what are the cons, not so much to mentorship, but what happens in organizations when you don't have mentorship?
Okay, I'll start with the pros of mentorship. I am a big advocate for mentorship. My nonprofit, Women Empowering Women, that's what we do is we mentor women and young girls. I started mentorship by accident when I was working for a company and I wanted a mentor and I needed a mentor and there was no mentorship program. I went to the top leadership and asked, why do we not have a mentorship program? This company has over 10,000 employees. And I was told, well, nobody ever asked for a mentorship program. So I was basically the first person that asked for a mentorship program. After asking month after month after month, I finally got the okay, we'll set it up and we'll have mentors and mentees. So I asked to be a mentee because I had only been with the company a couple of years and I had never been in a mentor position before.
Let me ask you this: while you're talking about that, because I think it's important on the front end of what you're saying. What was it that made you want a mentor or seek a mentor?
Okay. I wanted a mentor because I'm the type of person that's always wanting to progress in my career. And I know that in order to move up in your career, you need to have a mentor and a sponsor. And you definitely have to have one within your company that you're working for, regardless if you have some outside of your company in other organizations. It is very important to have one inside because this person is a person that knows the company ins and outs, can help you move up the ladder. This is the person who can, bring your name to the table in top leadership meetings. This is the person who can actually say, I recommend this person for a position. She's been here, she's done it well. I think she'd be a great candidate. So that's some of the reasons why you need a mentor. And also, it's just good to have a mentor to bounce ideas off, someone that you can, say, can you meet with me for 15 minutes on Friday? I've got a few things that I need to ask you and get your opinion on. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal, quote, quote, mentorship. It can be an informal. And from my experience over the years, I've developed at least 3 or 4 mentors, and each mentor is not mentoring you on the same issues. It's a positive thing to have a mentor that you can call on when you need one. The problem is if you don't have one and you have a problem within your organization, you don't have nobody to go to. You first may turn to your first level supervisor or your director or somebody. that might not be the person who has your best interest at heart. So it's always good to have a mentor that have your best interests at heart. They've been where you're trying to go, and they can get a word into top leadership.
Okay, so on the flip side of that, what happens when you don't have that leader?
Oh, I tell you, that's the hard part. When you don't have a mentor, it takes you a whole lot longer to climb that corporate ladder. Your professional development is not where it should be as quick as it should be. For me, it took years to get two steps, and those two steps were still at the bottom of the ladder as far as I'm concerned. I feel that a lot of it kept me down because I'm a fast tracker, and you give me something in 2 weeks, I've got it, you know. So it really was a detriment to my career. And I feel that had I had that mentor and the sponsor, I would have been so much further. I most likely would have been a manager or a director because I had the experience, I had the skills, I had the education. I just didn't have the position. I mean, I was already leading people. At one point, I had 24 advisors under me. So it really makes a big difference. Another thing, when you don't have a mentor that's working with you, whether inside your organization or outside your organization, if you try to say change companies, who's going to speak for you? Who's out there that's helping you transition? If you have no one helping you transition, that's another thing that will slow your progress down. And a mentor will say, okay, where is it that you're looking? What type of position you're looking for, or what type of growth it is that you want. It don't necessarily even have to be a position that you're trying to transition to within or without the company. It could just be a personal growth within you that you need a little help. And a lot of people are willing to give you the help you need just to kind of give you a little boost so that you can take it from there. And that's one of the reasons why, if you don't get these things, it's very unlikely that you're going to progress as fast as you want to, and also in the way in which you want to progress.
Well said. Sounds like you got a little passion there about that.
Of
What
course.
one of the things I think about as you were speaking is I'm big on personal and professional development, being the best version of yourself, but also having the tools in order to do that. And so one of the things with mentorship and speaking to what you just spoke on, I actually wrote a blog recently about two components or two elements that can make a difference in an organization is coaching and mentorship. Of course, they're not the same thing, but mentorship really helps to develop people, people within the workforce. It helps to develop value, people feeling valued and respected. Also, it adds value, but it also extracts value. I've developed several mentor programs, and one of the things with my background, one of the reasons I enjoy mentorship, being mentored and mentoring, is allowing uh, people to see themselves in a different light as they're experiencing new facets of themselves. One of the things with work, it's important to have skills to do the work we do, but also to be the person that does the work, to be the person that does the work. So when you go from maybe, and I use myself as an example, when I started working at an organization and then when I moved into a supervisory role, the change in me that helped to propel me to that role, it was a great confidence booster, but also it was great for my development as a person, but also as a employee, and how I showed up was different. So that mentorship is crucial and critical. Um, One of the things that I mentioned in this blog, which I think is really valuable here in this conversation, is if you're an organization that can and have the resources and ability to develop a program that has mentorship, definitely encourage you to do that. If you're an organization like Robert, Felicia, I hear what you're saying, you're preaching to the choir. You know, unfortunately, we don't have the resources or the funding to do that. You could also contract those services out. You
Yes.
can contract out for mentorship. I know Felicia and myself, one of the things that we do, we work with organizations around mentoring. What does that look like for the organization? Being able to evaluate that process to help you with that process. So we can help you either to develop a program within your organization, or if you don't have one and you want to contract for mentoring services, you can do that as well. So that's mentoring. I also mentioned coaching. That leads us to our next point, workplace coaching. I talked about earlier about conflict resolution skills. Felicia mentioned it about that as well. Conflict's not always a bad thing, right? Um, Communication skills, adding value and appreciation, or adding value and showing appreciation. Also, it can change workplace morale. I can't tell you how many times I've come into an organization to work with organizations and the morale was really low, right? But coaching can help in that capacity. Felicia, I want to kind of pass the mic to you in terms of that. I know how passionate you are about mentoring, and mentoring can really help in terms of helping develop people. How might coaching be beneficial as well in that same space?
Coaching, on the other hand, I feel it can be very positive because when you learn problem solving skills, that helps you to be able to help a whole lot of people because inside the workplace, outside the workplace, you are going to come across uh, skills where people need to have conflict resolved. So if you have problem solving skills, that's what kicks in, and you say, okay, let's take a look at what the problem is. And then how can I help you solve it? That's what coaches do. You know, you sit in their office, you sit down, they said, okay, so tell me what's the problem? You know, tell me what type of conflict you're having in the workplace or wherever. And then they give you a scenario of this or that. And then they give you like a roadmap to follow. Okay, when this happens, these are some of the things that you can do to help. And so on and so forth. So I feel that that's one of the main things that people have problems with inside the workplace and even working with businesses. You know, there's conflict there sometimes because of lack of communication. Communication is big. And if you don't get the communication right, then of course you're bound to have some sort of conflict, whether it's minor conflict or major conflict. But then once you recognize the fact that there's conflict, then what do? You need to have problem solving skills to solve it. And I think that sometimes people don't look at it in that way. They just look at, okay, we've got a problem and maybe I don't want to address it. Well, problems don't go away on themselves, they have to be addressed. And coaching is a great way to address that.
Appreciate that. As you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking wellness coaching. I'm thinking life coaching. A lot of times people say leave work at work and home at home. That sounds great. Often it doesn't happen. So if you have an
Okay.
individual who's at work and dealing with family problems, that's going to carry over. But if you have a coaching element to help people to not only be resourceful, but to be resilient and to have tools and techniques to navigate life or navigate work or navigate decision making and choices in the workplace, that can be really powerful. Um, and one of the things that coaching does, it helps to help folks to find answers within themselves. You know, coaches are not giving you the answers, but it's helping you to realize that you have answers, you have solutions within you. Sometimes it's just maybe the questions that you're asking or not asking yourself, right? Maybe it's seeing it from another perspective, right? Shifting your perspective or recognizing that you've actually dealt with something very similar and you have the skill set and the tools to actually navigate it. So coaching can be really powerful. Again, very similar to what I said about mentoring. If you have access to through EAP or through in the employee HR and HR resources and insurance to maybe provide coaching, great. If you don't, maybe even contracting those services out. Um, because coaching can be coaching along with mentoring can be a really powerful benefit for your organization as a whole. Whether it's the leadership, whether it's the organization, whether it's the employees, all that becomes really powerful and purposefully, intentionally, and strategically building workplace wellness. And you can build workplace wellness a lot of times through mentoring and coaching, changing the whole dynamics of the workplace and what it looks like. So Felicia already kind of talked about some of these. So we won't stay here on the challenges piece, but I do want to mention challenges and opportunities. What are some of the challenges that you see in terms of maybe implementing some of the things that we're talking about? Because I think it's helpful that people recognize that depending on where the organization is, depending where the employees are, there might be some different challenges that they might deal with. But also, I like to say, although there might be challenges, there are also opportunities with each challenge. What, and I just named a few on here, but Felicia, any of these that you want to talk about or add to this list that you want to share about some of the challenges maybe you experienced or some of the things that you saw could have been avoided in terms of these challenges?
Yes, I'll start with communication issues and then talk a little about employee morale issues because I worked in an environment that was very toxic and there was a lot of employee morale issues. And what I found that a lot of times the top management don't know what the bottom is going through. And then when they are notified of the issues, they're like, why haven't we known about this? Why did this go on so long before letting me find out about it? And because within companies, there's a chain of command. And I had to learn that very early in my career, because if you don't know who the key players are and you go above the person in the chain, then you will be brought back down to go through that person, then the next person, next person. So I think that that's part of the problem. You may see the problem. You present it to your first level supervisor, and that person may or may not escalate it to their manager. It may just stay there. And then, of course, nothing is being resolved if it stays within your level. Another thing is you can tell when a company has a morale problem when they send around these questionnaires asking for your opinions about what you would like to see change and, whatever your ideas are. They take and send it to the whole entire company, 12, 10,000 employees or how many ever you have, and nothing happens. You see nothing. 6 months down the line, a year down the line, nothing has happened. So that allows people to say, you ask for my opinion, but then I give it to you, but then you take no action to make it right. Another thing you notice when a company is having a morale issue, when you see every person that leaves the company will send a letter out to the entire company, all 10,000 employees, and it's 4 pages long. 4 pages long. And a lot of times they name people in those emails. And so when you get enough of those throughout the year, you know that there's a huge morale problem within the company. And sometimes that creates a revolving door. 10, 20 people may leave this month, then you may hire 5 or 10 more people. Then, it's just a back and forth thing wherein you're not really solving anything. And if you're not following up with those employees who left, you don't know. Because 9 times out of 10, the company president or whomever at the top, they're not going to see those because there's a particular department that handles that. And if they're not presenting it to the person on the top, they have no idea. It's a certain department that looks at how many people are leaving, how many people are coming, how many people are going, what type of letters are circulating. People need to pay attention to that because I know I did. When I start seeing so many in the same month, and when you see people escorted off the premises, there's something really wrong, especially in
You think so?
education.
You think so? Sounds
Yeah,
like it, and especially when people start name dropping. But when you
yes,
when you were
that's
saying that,
dangerous.
it made me think about high turnover because I've worked with a lot of organizations. When I came in, part of the training was because they had high turnover, and so really helping deal with some of the conflicts so that they can reduce some of that. Um, and I think this is where what we're talking about mentorship and coaching could help, but also when you're being intentional about developing the people within the organization, developing the structure and the process within the organization that really focuses on wellness of the individual, wellness of the organization, also focuses on them through opportunities and things like coaching and also mentorship. But it leads us into this last piece where we talked about challenges. It talks about opportunities. So a lot of those challenges that you just discussed, and you painted a really vivid picture of some of the morale issues, is cultivating, building, increasing. Again, cultivating, building, increasing. What are we cultivating? Workplace wellness. What are we building? Employee resourcefulness and resilience, right? What are we increasing? Productivity. What are we increasing? Effective communication. All those things really play a role in the workplace wellness, workplace mentorship, workplace coaching. But it leads us to this last piece that I want to kind of get ready to wrap up with is talking about tools and resources. I know you have books, I have books. We're talking about mentoring services, how they can be developed or outsourced, and coaching. Coaching can also be developed or outsourced in terms of different programs. How important is it to have tools and resources? Because one of the things that you mentioned in your story and some of the experience that you had, you said you were in a toxic environment. What would have happened in those environments had you had tools and resources to assist you and maybe not deal with some of that toxicity?
I know for a fact that if I would have had some resources, I would have had the problem solved much earlier in that term that I was there, and my outcome would have been totally different. I would have used some of the resources that I found later to make it a positive situation for me, because had I had the right mentors and sponsors, I could have either transitioned to a different location and had a mentor that was um, for me and making sure that I was successful in my transition and also moving up within the ladder. I would have been able to take part in a lot of leadership opportunities, even though I did participate in one, which was a basic leadership um, program within the company. But I feel overall, I would have gotten the ability to be more impactful and to utilize some of the empowerment that I received outside of this company. Sometimes you have to either um, move to grow, or sometimes you have to move outside to grow. And for me, I had to move outside the company that I was with to grow and to be empowered so that I could empower other women. Because I really don't want anyone to experience the toxic work environment like I worked in. But more specifically, I want women to be empowered and to be able to be um, healthy and, just experience wellness at work and also utilize the employee resource groups because the 13 years I was with that company, we only had an employee resource group the last 2 years I was there. And once they start talking about it, I'm like, I'm joining. I'm joining
Right.
because I want to make a difference, not only for me, but for the people who were there. Because I'm the type of person, if I feel that I have a heart for people, but yes, my passion is women. But if I'm going to help everybody, everybody's going to be included in the employee resource group, meaning men and women, even though they started with one employee resource group and then it grew to two, which the second employee resource group was specifically for women, but the first one started out as a minority. So anyone that was a minority was able to participate in that employee resource group. I feel that there's a very valid reason for having employee resource groups, and I feel that they do help with wellness because you are in a positive environment. And when
Right.
you're in a positive environment, it breeds more positivity.
Well said. Thank you for that passionate statement. I think one of the things that's really helpful in for this conversation as we get ready to wrap up is people having tools and resources to on purpose have create wellness, and also I think keep in mind it is everybody's responsibility. I think organizationally and individually, but I think collaborating together to foster an environment conducive to everybody's wellness, the wellness of the individuals within the organization, but the wellness of the organization too to thrive. I think that's important. It's about the folks that work there, but also believing in and building the people that work there on purpose. A lot of times when I see uh, the challenges is because people are not proactive, they're more reactive. A lot of times when I came in to work with the organization, it was more about what happened. That's why I came in. So a couple of things I want to share for those who have organizations who don't have those programs, definitely look into building in your resources, whether it's your EAP, your HR, human resources packet or information, definitely implementing programs where it has a mentorship and a coaching component. If that's something that your organization is not necessarily in a space to doing, but you can outsource that, and that can look like maybe just monthly or bi-monthly or what works for your budget, but also for your employees. But at least actively looking at that, implementing practices so not only about workplace culture, but also practices. What are the best practices that you can implement in facilitating this environment conducive to the overall growth and well-being of the employee and the organization? I think those things become really important. As we get ready to wrap up, I will ask you all to definitely like and subscribe to my channel. But I want to kind of give Felicia an opportunity to share again some of the things that she's doing and for how folks can contact her. But keep in mind, if you are interested in the topics that we talked about today, workplace wellness, incorporating coaching and mentorship within that workplace, definitely reach out to Felicia or myself or both. But definitely like and subscribe to the channel. Felicia, any things that you want to share as we get ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to tell people how to reach me for the Women Empowering Women nonprofit organization that I have. It's www.weimpactwomen.org. And also for my consulting, it's Global Education Consulting LLC.com. And for my books, it's www.empoweringwritings.com/books. So that's the three ways you can reach me. And most people like to reach out by social media. So, because the email addresses and the phone numbers and all of that, it just, people don't get it. They'd rather just go to your page and they can get in contact with you that way.
All right. Thank you, Felicia. My contact information will be in the YouTube. If you're going to see this on another platform, you could reach me at Dr. Robert L. Wilson Jr. That's on LinkedIn. That's on Facebook. That's on Instagram. Also, Dr. Robert L. Wilson Jr.com is where you can find my books at as well. Felicia, thank you so much for taking the opportunity out of your day and time to share this conversation about workplace wellness, about workplace mentorship and coaching. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your tools and resources. And I appreciate the opportunity. And we definitely have to do this again soon.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.